नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 4. This is a new chapter we're beginning today. This chapter is entitled The Atrocities of King Kamsa. So there is a chapter summary here. I'll read the summary, then we will recite the first verse of this chapter. The summary of the chapter is as follows. This chapter describes how Kamsa, following the advice of his demoniac friends, considered the persecution of small children to be very diplomatic. After Vasudeva bound himself with iron shackles as before, all the doors of the prison house closed by the influence of Yogamaya, who then began crying as a newborn child. This crying awakened the doorkeepers, who immediately informed Kamsa that a child had been born to Devaki. Upon hearing this news, Kamsa appeared with great force in the maternity room, and in spite of Devaki's pleas that the child be saved, the demon forcibly snatched the child from Devaki's hands and dashed the child against a rock. Unfortunately for Kamsa, however, the newborn child slipped away from his hands, rose above his head, and appeared as the eight-armed form of Durga. Durga then told Kamsa, "The enemy you contemplate has taken birth somewhere else. Therefore, your plan to persecute all the children will prove futile." According to the prophecy, the eighth child of Devaki would kill Kamsa, and therefore, when Kamsa saw that the eighth child was a female and heard that his so-called enemy had taken birth elsewhere, he was struck with wonder. He decided to release Devaki and Vasudeva, and he admitted before them the wrongness of his atrocities. Falling at the feet of Devaki and Vasudeva, he begged their pardon and tried to convince them that because the events that had taken place were destined to happen, they should not be unhappy for his having killed so many of their children. Devaki and Vasudeva, being naturally very pious, immediately excused Kamsa for his atrocities. And Kamsa, after seeing that his sister and brother-in-law were happy, returned to his home. After the night passed, however, Kamsa called for his ministers and informed them of all that had happened. The ministers, who were all demons, advised Kamsa that because his enemy had already taken birth somewhere else, all the children born within the past 10 days in the villages within Kamsa's kingdom should be killed. Although the demigods always feared Kamsa, they should not be treated leniently since they were enemies. Kamsa should try his best to uproot their existence. The demoniac ministers further advise that Kamsa and the demons continue their enmity toward Vishnu, because Vishnu is the original person among all the demigods. The Brahmanas, the cows, the Vedas, austerity, truthfulness, control of the senses and mind, faithfulness, and mercy are among the different parts of the body of Vishnu, who is the origin of all the demigods, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Therefore, the ministers advised the demigods, the saintly persons, the cows, and the brahmanas should be systematically persecuted. Strongly advised in this way by his friends, the demoniac ministers, Kamsa approved of their instructions and considered it beneficial to be envious of the Brahmanas. Following Kamsa's orders, therefore, the demons began committing their atrocities all over Vrajabhumi. That's the end of the summary of this chapter 4. Text 1, kindly repeat after me. Shri Shuka Vacha Bahirantaha Pura Dvaraha Bairantah Puradvara Sarva Purvavat Avritaha Sarva Purvavadavritaha Tato Bala Dhvanim Shrutva Tato Bala Dhvanim Shrutva Grihapala Samuthitaha Grihapala Samuthitaha Shri Shuka Vacha Bahirantah Puradvaraha Sarva Purvavadavritaha Tato Baladhvanim Shrutva Grihapala Samuthitaha Shri Shuka Vacha Bahirantah Puradvaraha Sarva Purvavadavritaha Tato Baladhvanim Shrutva Grihapala Samuthitaha Shri Shuka Vacha Bahirantah Puradvara Sarva Purvavadavritaha Tato Baladhvanim Shrutva Grihapala Samuthitaha Shri Shuka Vacha Bahirantah Puradvaraha Sarva Purvavadavritaha Apala Samuthitaha Shri Shuka Vacha. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, Bahihi Antah Pura Dvaraha. The doors inside and outside the house, Sarvaha, all, Purvavat, like before, Avritaha, closed, Tataha, Thereafter, Baladhvanim, the crying of the newborn child, Shrutva, hearing, Grihapalaha, all the inhabitants of the house, especially the doormen, Samuthitaha, awakened. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Shukadev Goswami continued, My dear King Parikshit, the doors inside and outside the house closed as before. Thereafter, the inhabitants of the house, especially the watchmen, heard the crying of the newborn child and thus awakened from their beds. Please repeat this translation. Shukadeva Goswami continued, My dear King Parikshit, the doors inside and outside the house closed as before. Thereafter, the inhabitants of the house, especially the watchmen, heard the crying of the newborn child and thus awakened from their beds. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The activities of Yogamaya are distinctly visible in this chapter, in which Devaki and Vasudeva excuse Kamsa for his many devious, atrocious activities, and Kamsa becomes repentant and falls at their feet. Before the awakening of the watchman and the others in the prison house, many other things happened. Krishna was born and transferred to the home of Yashoda in Gokula. The strong doors opened and again closed, and Vasudeva resumed his former condition of being shackled. The watchmen, however, could not understand all this. They awakened only when they heard the crying of the newborn child, Yogamaya. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has remarked that the watchmen were just like dogs. At night, the dogs in the street act like watchmen. If one dog barks, many other dogs immediately follow it by barking. Although the street dogs are not appointed by anyone to act as watchmen, they think they are responsible for protecting the neighborhood. And as soon as someone unknown enters it, they all begin to bark. Both Yogamaya and Mahamaya act in all material activities. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. But although the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead acts under the Supreme Lord's direction, Mayadhyakshena prakritihi suyate sa characharam. Dog-like watchmen, such as politicians and diplomats, think that they are protecting their neighborhoods from the dangers of the outside world. These are the actions of Maya. But one who surrenders to Krishna is relieved of the protection afforded by the dogs and dog-like guardians of this material world. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're beginning a new chapter. This chapter describes the atrocities of King Kamsa. So the very opening words of this chapter describes how the doors inside and outside the house closed as before. When Krishna was born, Krishna accepted the prayers of Vasudeva and Devaki, and he himself instructed Vasudeva to transfer him from that prison house to the house of Nanda Maharaj in Gokula. And Vasudeva did that. And as instructed by Krishna, Vasudeva brought that female child born of Yashoda to the prison house. And when he returned, everything that had opened in the prison, everything closed as before. And after everything was closed as before, then the child began to cry. Till then the child was silent. Of course, the child is no ordinary child. The child is Yoga Maya. And Yoga Maya is a servant of Krishna, Krishna's own internal potency, internal energy for Krishna's purposes. So Yoga Maya has appeared as this daughter of Yashoda. And she is instructed by Krishna that she has to appear as daughter of Yashoda. And she knows everything is happening under the direction of Krishna. Even Vasudeva knows everything is happening by the will of God, will of Krishna. All devotees know that, especially pure devotees. So when the child began to cry, immediately all the watchmen who were fast asleep when all this was happening, Krishna taking birth and the prayers offered by Vasudeva and Devaki, and Krishna instructing Vasudeva, and Vasudeva actually carrying out the instruction of Vasudeva. All that was happening by the influence of Yogamaya, and the same influence of Yogamaya made the watchman fast asleep. Kamsa, watchman, even the inhabitants of Gokula, they were also fast asleep. Everyone is fast asleep. So as a result, neither the watchman knew what happened, nor did Yashoda know whether she had given birth to a female child or a male child. She did not know. Neither did the inhabitants of Gokula could figure out that Vasudeva had come middle of the night and exchanged Yashoda's baby daughter for his own son. They could not know anything. They did not know. They were all fast asleep. So here, Prabhupada says in the purport, the activities of Yogamaya are distinctly visible in this chapter. we do not know generally what is Yogamaya. We only know, or we are conducted by Mahamaya. These are two different energies of Krishna. The Yogamaya is the spiritual energy, Krishna's own personal energy for his purposes, for his personal purposes, for the spiritual world. And there is Mahamaya, which is for the material world. And it is also another energy of Krishna. But this energy called Mahamaya is completely aloof from Krishna. Completely aloof from Krishna. Krishna neither comes in contact with this Mahamaya, nor does Mahamaya in any way stay wherever Krishna is present. Or somebody may say Krishna is present everywhere. In the material world, in the spiritual world. Of course, in the spiritual world, Mahamaya is never there. It's completely the jurisdiction of Yogamaya. But in the material world, it is completely the jurisdiction of Mahamaya, the material world. But still, there is a peculiarity of this material world. What is that? In the material world, Krishna is present as Vishnu. 3 Vishnu forms. One form of Vishnu is Mahavishnu. He is in the Karana ocean. He is outside of all the universes. And the second Vishnu, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, he is within each universe in so many forms as there are universes. Billions and trillions of universes and billions and trillions of forms of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. He expands into as many forms as there are universes, and he enters into each universe, and he conducts the entire universe. Everything in the universe is conducted by the actions of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, the second Vishnu form. So in each universe, one Garbhodakshayi Vishnu is there. Or the same Garbhodakshayi Vishnu is there in every universe. As a separate person, he is there. And Vishnu also expands, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu also expands in 2 other forms. One is the form of the whole universe, also called the universal form, Virat Purusha. Virat Purusha. That's another form of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. That form was shown to Arjuna. Virat Purusha form was shown to Arjuna by Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That is described in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And one more form, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu expands, is called the maintainer Vishnu, Kshirodakshayi Vishnu. The Vishnu who is also considered as one of the Devatas by ordinary people. So there are 3 principal Devatas who are directors of the 3 gunas and the directors of the different departments of universal administration. Broadly speaking, the 3 departments of universal administration are creation, maintenance, and destruction departments. So Vishnu personally takes charge of the maintenance department, most complicated department. Because for the duration of the universe, this maintenance department is active. Creation happens at the beginning of the creation, and at the end of the creation, destruction takes place. But it is not so simple again, creation and destruction. That's also complicated. Even though Brahma takes charge of creation and Shiva takes charge of destruction, they are always assisted by Vishnu himself, the maintainer Vishnu, in every act of their creation or destruction. Why? Because after the creation of this universal elements is done by the Virat Purusha. All the elements are created, all the planets are generated, all the living spaces are created. Then Brahma is born and he begins his work of creation. So Brahma's creation is only creating the bodies of the living entities. That's all the creation Brahma does. The other work, parts of the creation is done by Virat Purusha. That's explained in the Bhagavatam. So even creating the living beings, only the living beings who reside in Brahmaloka, after they are born, their duration of life is equal to the duration of life of Brahma. But the other creatures in the other planets, their duration of life is much, much, much less than the duration of life of Brahma. Their duration of life maximum is 1 manvantara, the duration of the life of a Manu. Manu is one of the administrators of this universe. And there are creatures whose duration of life is much less than Manvantara even. And there are creatures whose duration of life is very, 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 very tiny fraction of time of the duration of the universe. So this is all explained in the Bhagavatam in one chapter called Measurement of Time, 3rd Canto, 11th chapter. Atomic time to universal time. The divisions of time are described there. Bhagavatam is perfect knowledge. The scientists are still struggling to understand what is this time factor. Though they have made a significant progress from so-called Stone Age up to the modern day, still they haven't figured out exactly what is atomic time, and they don't have no idea of universal time. They have no idea at all. It's total ignorance on their part, and the total darkness. What is this universal time described in the Bhagavatam? Anyway, so Brahma has to keep creating every day of his life. Brahma's day, there is a certain duration. At the end of Brahma's day, there is a partial destruction of the universe. You see? And then at night of Brahma, Brahma goes to sleep. And Brahma and all the inhabitants of Brahmaloka, they go to sleep. And then again they wake up after the night is over. And again Brahma is to begin his creation. I always used to wonder, what will Brahma do after creating? Initially, when I heard Brahma is the creator, and Brahma's duration of life is fantastically long. So I always used to wonder, what will Brahma do after he creates? His work is over, according to what little understanding I had. No, Brahma not only is the creator at the beginning of creation, but he is also the creator at the beginning of each day of his. It's like we work ordinarily. Supposing somebody goes to a factory to work or office to work, and they go in the morning and come back in the evening. So, evening when they come back, then night they retire for the day, they take a rest, again the morning get up, again go to the factory, again go to the office. So, what do? They again resume where they left off. So, Brahma, similarly, he has to resume where he left off the previous evening. So, he has to again create all these living entities according to their karma. He has to give them their bodies. So, this work of creation of Brahma is not so simple. It's not a one-time thing. Continuously, this creation, maintenance, destruction keeps happening. This is the mystery of what is called as the working of material nature. So, in describing material nature in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Adhibhutam ksharo bhavaha. Adhibhuta, this material nature, its characteristic is kshara. It is constantly changing. Kshara means constantly changing in this case. Why? Because constantly creation, maintenance, and destruction is taking place in this material world. Take our very body. We think that creation of this body took place when we were born. In the mother's womb, the body was fabricated. And then we came out of the mother's womb after the body was fully ready. And then after that, we think we start living and we grow up. Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and all the scriptures inform us this body actually is a dead body because it is made up of dead matter. It is made up of dead matter. So the body appears to grow because constantly the cells in the body are replaced. Constantly the cells are born and they remain for very, very little time, and they also are destroyed. So everything material is constantly being created, maintained, and destroyed. So therefore, this material nature is constantly changing. Is constantly changing. Our body is also constantly changing. All bodies. Everything in existence is constantly changing. Only the difference is in our body or the body of any living being, for the so-called lifespan in which the living beings appears to live. During this time, the changes are so subtle that we cannot make out the bodies changing. Of course, we can make out the bodies changing, but we think one type of change as growth. Another type of change we think is sustenance. And yet another type of change we think as deterioration of the body. So, in the scripture, the description that anything created in terms of the body of the living beings, it has got 6 phases of existence. It undergoes 6 changes, Shadvikara: birth, growth, sustenance, then producing byproducts, then dwindling and vanishing or death. So these 6 changes are distinctly visible as phases of the existence of our body. That we can make out. But actually, even within the phase of birth, there are constant changes taking place. Even the phase of growth, of course, there are changes taking place. Growth means change, anyway. Sustenance, so-called sustenance, also changes are taking place in the body. And producing byproducts, changes are taking place in the body. Like that, there is constant change in this material nature. And foolishly, one type of change we call it birth, another type of change we call it growth, another type of change we call it sustenance, etc. Just like this table, why just the body? Even the table, it is constantly changing. How can we make out that this table, when it was made new, it had certain strength? But the strength of this table, because of the action of the 3 gunas, it is constantly deteriorating in its strength. And only when there is significant deterioration, we will see this table has become so old that it is not going to remain. It is going to crumble. It's going to crumble and it is going to fall off. Similarly, buildings also. When the building becomes very old, then it will start crumbling. Like that, actually this table or any other object other than the bodies of living entities, also constantly it is being destroyed. Constantly being destroyed. But only the case of the body, the destruction is invisible. It's invisible. Actually, we don't realize when we take bath every day, the dead skin cells from the surface of our body are constantly washed away as a dirt. Of course, there is dirt that sticks when we move around, some dust or something that will stick to the skin. That is there, that is dirt. But apart from dirt, there is also dead cells. Constantly dead cells are being produced. The destruction of the old cells. And the new cells are replacing them. Just like when there is injury, you can clearly see that, especially when burn happens, some burning of the skin, then you see the fresh skin will come, right? The fresh skin will come. So that fresh skin is what? The old skin is replaced by the old skin cells are replaced by the new skin cells. So, but still the scientists cannot figure out that this is happening in the entire body for all the cells. They think only some cells this is happening. No, all the cells this is happening. So anyway, this creation, maintenance, destruction, my point is, these departments are very, very complex departments. So therefore, the topmost devatas, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, they take charge of creation, maintenance and destruction departments. And in the maintenance phase and even the creation destruction phase, all the three have got assistants. So many millions and billions of assistants. Brahma has got his assistants for creation. Vishnu has his assistants for maintenance. And Shiva has his assistants for destruction. And they are all active in the process of creation, process of maintenance, process of destruction. It's a very elaborate subject that is described briefly in the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam little more elaborately. But the full description you cannot get anywhere in one place. It's all over the Vedas. Everywhere in the Vedas it's described. So this complex task actually is taken charge by Vishnu himself. As the maintainer, Vishnu, the leader of all the Devatas, he of course is in charge of maintenance and he is the leader of all the Devatas. Whenever Devatas have any problem they cannot solve, they go to Brahma. And if Brahma also can't solve, then they go to Shiva. Shiva also can't solve, then they go to Vishnu. But with Vishnu, there is no question of not being able to solve. Vishnu says, okay, you have this problem, it's not being, none of you can solve it, I'll solve it. That's it, finished, over. And Vishnu also assists others, even when they don't have a problem, to do their very duty. Vishnu, Kshirodakshai Vishnu, expands as Paramatma and enters the heart of every living creature. And he is active in every body. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mattas smritir jnanam apohanam cha. I am seated in everybody's heart, and from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So it is Paramatma who is giving us knowledge. We think that I was born in ignorance, and that's a fact. Yeah, we are born in ignorance. But then I get some knowledge, acquire knowledge as I grow up, and then that knowledge is my knowledge, and I utilize that knowledge. I think that is my knowledge, and I utilize that knowledge. I have acquired it from some source. Okay. But this is not the fact. The so-called acquisition of knowledge is simply an action of the illusory energy. It's an action of Maya. Why? Because, simple reason. Supposing I have studied yesterday for the exam today. Today is my exam. Yesterday I sat and studied. And then I go to the examination hall and then I'm given a question paper. Then I have to answer the questions. What do I think? What do everybody think? Oh, I studied nicely. I will answer all the questions. But actually, what is happening when I go to the examination hall and start answering the exam questions? I have to recollect whatever I have studied. Is it not? If I am not able to recollect, I cannot answer. And what does Krishna say? From me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So remembrance has to be given by Krishna. If Krishna does not give remembrance, what is the use of all my studying for the exam? It's useless. Okay. One more instance I can give to help us understand. Krishna gives even knowledge. For example, I study some subject and I acquire some knowledge how to do something. When I actually have to do it, Krishna from within has to direct my intelligence, my mind, my senses of perception, my senses of action. Then only I can do something with the knowledge I have acquired. If at any stage of applying the knowledge, if Paramatma does not assist me or give me the direct my intelligence properly, or does not direct my mind properly, or does not direct my senses properly, or does not direct my uh, uh, does not allow me to uh, engage the skill with which I know how to do things. It's like however skilled a surgeon may be, he has performed thousands of operations. Okay? Some nervous problem, he's trying to do the surgery, he's holding the scissors, but his hand starts shaking. Some nervous problem. He cannot do the operation. Krishna forbid, he gets a paralytic stroke. His hand is frozen. He cannot do the operation. However skilled he is. Isn't that? So, the whole nervous system, how is it working? It is working because of the prana energy. That energy is energy of Paramatma. So, even knowledge comes from Paramatma every moment. It is not the knowledge I have acquired. It is not the skill I have built up by experience, by working very hard, by learning. All that is simply a illusory effect of the illusory energy. So-called learning, skill development, it's all conducted by the three gunas, by Durga Devi. So here Prabhupada says, the activities of Yoga Maya, here he says, both Yogamaya and Mahamaya act in all material activities. Now, Mahamaya is active in all material activity that we know, because Mahamaya is conducting this entire material world according to the direction of Krishna. But Yogamaya is also conducting certain activities in this material world. How is that? For devotees, even in the material world, like Vasudeva, Devaki, and Kamsa, all three are there in Kamsa's palace. Kamsa's activities are conducted by Mahamaya. Vasudeva and Devaki's activities, even in Kamsa's palace, prison, always Vasudeva and Devaki's activities are conducted by Yogamaya. All their activities, even ordinary activities of eating, of lifting something, everything is conducted by Yogamaya. So, devotees are always under the protection and shelter of Yogamaya. Krishna explains this in the Bhagavad Gita. Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutadimabhi. So, devotees, specifically refers to pure devotees, they call Mahatmas. They are always conducted by Yogamaya. So therefore it is said, both Yogamaya and Mahamaya act in all material activities. So as devotees, we should remember, we are not in the clutches of Mahamaya. We are always under the shelter and protection of Yogamaya, provided we surrender to Krishna and act according to the instructions of Krishna coming through the bona fide spiritual master Srila Prabhupada. Then we are completely safe even in the material world. Just like Vasudeva and Devaki. They are always protected by Krishna through his personal potency called Yogamaya. Even devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement who are following Prabhupada's instructions, whatever they do in accordance with Prabhupada's directions, all those activities are conducted by Yogamaya. So, their skill, their intelligence, their knowledge, their movements, their facilities, their requirements, their necessities, everything is given by Yogamaya. They never have to depend on Mahamaya. They never have to depend on themselves. They don't have to depend on any other devata. That's what Prabhupada says here, that one who surrenders to Krishna is relieved of the protection afforded by the dogs and dog-like guardians of this material world. Here, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that in this material world, we make so many arrangements for our protection. Or somebody thinks I am a guardian or a watchman or a security person. But actually, the real protection is only from Krishna. And all the so-called protection of others or other arrangements is simply different effects of the illusory energy, which does not really give any protection. It looks like protection, but it is not protection. It is simply interaction of the three gunas, and it is simply a illusory effect. That's all. Some illusory effect. Just like money, you consider money. Money changes so many hands, particularly nowadays, right? After the currency note, let us say it is printed in RBI, Reserve Bank of India, and then the note is released and put into circulation, it changes so many hands. Now, whenever it comes into my hand, I think this is my money. But even if it is in my hand, how long it is going to remain? For some time. And after that, it is forever gone out of my hand. Especially when I die. When I die, whatever my wealth, whatever my possessions, permanently it is my loss. Permanent loss. So, Shastra says, even when you are holding on to it, while you are so-called living in a particular body, it was never yours. It was simply an illusory effect of the three gunas. Of course, we know the currency note is simply a representation of some wealth guaranteed by the central government. Okay. But even gold, let us say somebody has actually got gold in their possession. Is that also real wealth? No. Gold itself, what is gold? We say gold is very precious and iron is not so precious. Or some dirt lying on the street, it is totally worthless. But actually, all these are transformations of the combination of the five elements. Is it not? We have made some arrangement among ourselves that gold has got more value, iron has relatively less value, and dirt or earth has no value. That's our arrangement, so-called material arrangement. That is why devotees never give value to material possessions, material wealth. Devotees' wealth is Krishna. Devotees' wealth is their spiritual assets. And what are the spiritual assets? All the spiritual qualities, all the spiritual um, spiritual knowledge, spiritual spiritual paraphernalia. That is their asset, and that is permanently with them. That is never to be destroyed. That is never to be destroyed. That is eternal. And material, it is always temporary. And it's always changing. Adhibhutam Ksharobha. So these are some of the points that are noticeable or remarkable in this purport. I'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.